Ladies, gentlemen, envy folks, everyone of all ages, this is the Red Lobster Terms of Service reading stream. That's the first time I think someone has ever said that. Alrighty. Welcome. You have arrived at our US website located at www.redlobster.com, our Canadian website located at www.redlobster.ca, Canadian service, and or are otherwise interacting with our service, defined below, which is owned and operated by RL Investor Holdings LLC or our affiliates, collectively Red Lobster, we, our, or us. These terms govern your use of any online service location, website, or mobile app, and post on link to these terms, each a site except when we refer only to our mobile mobile apps, in which case an app, including both mobile and online versions. It also applies to your use of all features, widgets, plugins, applications, content, downloads, and or other services that we own and control and make available through a site and or that post or link to these terms, collectively with the sites and apps of the service, regardless of how you access or use it, whether by computer, mobile device, or otherwise. Our Canadian service is intended for use by Canadian residents, and other services are intended for by U.S. residents. By using this service, you acknowledge and accept the service's privacy notice available at www.redlobster.com and www.redlobster.ca, and subject to special rights for the Canadian service set for therein. Consent to the collection and use of your data in accordance with the privacy notice, and further agree that Red Lobster may change, alter, or modify these settings or configurations on your device, from below, in order for or optimize your use of the service. In some instances, both these terms and separate guidelines, rules, or terms of use or sale, setting forth additional or different terms and or conditions will apply to your use of the service or to a service or product offered via the service, each such instance, and collectively additional terms, including without a limitation the use of www.redlobster.ca. To the extent there is a conflict between these terms and any additional terms, the additional terms will control unless the additional terms expressly state otherwise. Users of our Canadian service have different rights and terms set forth in Section 1, Rights and Responsibilities, subsection G below. Each time you access and or use a service, other than simply read these terms, you are agreed to be bound and comply with these and any applicable additional terms then posted, subject to Section 4, Standard Terms, subsection A below. Therefore, do not use the service if you do not agree. The business realty associated with operating the service are such that, without the conditions that are set forth in these terms, subject to applicable law, such as your grants and waivers of rights, the limitations on our liability, your indemnity of us, and arbitration of certain disputes, and class action and jury waiver, we will not make the service available to you. Now we got a lot. Alrighty, let's get this party started. Full terms, rights and responsibilities terms. Service content, ownership, limited license, and rights of others. Limited usage license. All content in the service, including text, design, graphics, logos, icons, images, audio clips, downloads, interface codes, and software, as well as the selection and arrangement thereof content, is the exclusive property of and owned by Red Lobster, its licensors, or its content providers, and is protected by copyright, trademark, and other applicable laws. Subject to your strict compliance with these terms and the additional terms, Red Lobster grants you a limited, non-exclusive, revocable, non-assignable, personal, and non-transferable license to download a copy, temporary storage only, display, view, use, and play the content on a personal computer, mobile phone, or other wireless device, or other internet-enabled device, each device, and or print one copy of the content, excluding source and object code in raw form or otherwise, as it is displayed to you, in each case for your personal, non-commercial use only, provided you do not modify or delete any copyright, trademark, or other proprietary notice that appears on the material you access, copy, download, or print. Any other use of content on the service, including but not limited to the modification, distribution, transmission, performance, broadcast, publication, uploading, licensing, reverse engineering, transfer, or sale of, or the creation of derivative works from, any material, information, software, products, or services obtained for the service, or use the service for purposes competitive to Red Lobster, is expressly prohibited without the prior written consent of Red Lobster. You agree to abide by all additional restrictions displayed on the service as it may be updated from time to time. Red Lobster does not have a confidential fiduciary or any other special relationship by virtue of your use of the service or your communications to us through or related to the service. Red Lobster or its licensors or content providers retain full and complete title to the material provided on the service, including all associated intellectual property rights, and provide this material to you under a license that is revocable at any time in Red Lobster's sole discretion. Red Lobster neither warrants nor represents that your use of materials on the service will not infringe rights of third parties not affiliated with Red Lobster. Okay. Now this. Section 2. Trademarks and copyrights. You or third parties acting on your behalf are not allowed to use our name, logo, or proprietary trademarks in a manner that dilutes or disparages them, such as endorsement or makes a trademark use of them. Our trademarks include, but are not limited to, Red Lobster, Cheddar Bay Biscuits, Lobster Fest, Endless Shrimp, and Seafood Differently. You may not use frames or utilize framing techniques or technology to enclose any content included on service without Red Lobster's express written consent. Further, you may not utilize any of our trademarks or content in any meta tags or any other hidden text techniques or technologies without Red Lobster's express written consent. The service and all of its content, included but not limited to text, design, graphics, interfaces, and code, and the selection and arrangement thereof, is protected as a compilation under the copyright laws of the United States and other countries. Any unauthorized use of any content or the service for any purpose is prohibited. Meaning yes, Red Lobster, Cheddar Bay Biscuits, Lobster Fest, Endless Shrimp, and Seafood Differently are all trademarked. That plays into something later. Keep that in mind. Rights of others. In using the service, you must respect the intellectual property and other rights of Red Lobster and others. Your unauthorized use of content may violate copyright, trademark, privacy, publicity, communications, and other laws, and any such use may result in your personal liability, including potential criminal liability. Red Lobster respects the intellectual property rights of others. If you believe that your work has been infringed by means of an improper posting or distribution of the service, then please see Section 3, Infringement Disputes, subsection A, below. Alrighty. Section 4. Trademark reservation of all rights not granted as to content and service. Trademarks, logos, and service marks displayed on the service are registered and unregistered trademarks of Red Lobster, its licensors or suppliers, other third parties. All of these trademarks, logos, and service marks are the property of their respective owners. Nothing on the service shall be construed as granting by implication, estoppel, or otherwise any license or right to use trademark, logo, or service mark displaying the service without the owner's prior written permission, except as otherwise described herein. All rights not explicitly granted to you are reserved by Red Lobster and its licensors and other third parties. Oh, we got a big one. Alright, Section B, content you submit. Red Lobster may now or in the future offer users of the service the opportunity to create, build, post, upload, display, publish, distribute, transmit, broadcast, or otherwise make available on or submit through the service or in response to our pages or posts on any third-party platforms or in connection with any of our promotions by any media or manner, or otherwise submit to us on our Facebook or social media pages, in response to our tweets, through a Red Lobster sweepstakes contest, or by mail. Collectively submit messages, text, illustrations, files, images, graphics, photos, comments, responses, sounds, music, videos, information, content, ratings, reviews, data, questions, suggestions, personally identifiable information, or other information or materials, and the ideas contained therein, collectively but excluding any content or other Red Lobster materials included therein, user-generated content. You acknowledge that you are responsible for any user-generated content you may submit, including the legality, reliability, appropriateness, originality, and copyright of such material. You may not submit any content that is confidential, proprietary, false, fraudulent, libellous, defamatory, obscene, threatening, invasive of privacy or publicity rights, infringing on intellectual property rights, abusive, illegal, or otherwise objectionable. May constitute or encourage a criminal offense, violate the rights of any party, or otherwise give rise to liability or violate any law or may contain software viruses, political campaigning, chain letters, mass mailings, advertising, or promotion of your or third parties' products or services, or any form of spam. Not the meat. You may not submit a false email address or other identifying information, impersonate any person or entity, or otherwise mislead as to the origin of any content. You may not submit commercial content. If you do submit user-generated content, unless we indicate otherwise, you continue to use your own user-generated content, but to the extent by applicable law you grant Red Lobster an unrestricted, non-exclusive, royalty-free, perpetual, irrevocable, and fully sublicensable right to use, reproduce, modify, adapt, publish, translate, create derivative works from, distribute, and display such material throughout the world in any media, and by all manners, now and hereafter known or devised, whether in connection with the particular promotion, if any, for which the user-generated content was submitted or otherwise. Without limitation, the granted rights include the right to configure, host, index, cache, archive, store, digitize, compress, optimize, modify, reformat, edit, adapt, publish in searchable format, and remove such user-generated content, and combine same with other materials, and use any ideas, concepts, know-how, or techniques contained in any user-generated content for any purposes whatsoever, including developing, producing, and marketing products and/or services. You understand that in exercising such rights, metadata, notices, and content may be removed or altered, including copyright management information, and you consent thereto and represent and warrant you have all necessary authority to do so. In order to further affect the rights and license that you grant to Red Lobster to your user-generated content, to the extent permitted by applicable law, you also hereby grant to Red Lobster and agree to grant to Red Lobster the unconditional, perpetual, irrevocable right to use and exploit your name, persona, and likeness in connection with any user-generated content without any obligation or remuneration to you. Except as prohibited by law, you hereby waive, and you agree to waive, any moral rights, including attribution and integrity, that you may have in any user-generated content, even if it is altered or changed in a manner not agreeable to you. To the extent not waivable, you irrevocably agree to not exercise such rights, if any, in a manner that interferes with any exercise of the granted rights. You understand that you will not receive any fees, sums, consideration, or remuneration for any of the rights granted in the Section 1 Rights Responsibilities subsection B. Oh, gosh. Oh, man. Without limiting the above grant of rights, you further acknowledge and agree that Red Lobster is free to use any ideas, concepts, know-how that you or individuals acting on your behalf submit to Red Lobster without any obligation to you or others, including compensation or attribution, except as otherwise described in the service's privacy notice posted at www.redlobster.com and www.redlobster.ca, or any additional terms you agree that your user-generated content will be treated as non-confidential and non-proprietary by us, regardless of whether you mark them as confidential, proprietary, or the like, and will not be returned. You represent and warrant that you own or otherwise control all the rights to the content you submit, that you have permission from all individuals who appear or are mentioned in the content you submit or participated in the creation of the submission, that the content is accurate, that use of the content you supply does not violate any provision herein and will not cause injury to any person or entity, and that you will indemnify and hold Red Lobster harmless for all claims resulting from content you supply. Upon Red Lobster's request, you will furnish us with any documentation necessary to substantiate the rights to such content to verify your compliance with these terms or any applicable additional terms. Red Lobster may but will not have any obligation to review, monitor, display, post, store, maintain, accept, or otherwise make use of any of your user-generated content, and we may, in our sole discretion, reject, delete, move, reformat, remove, or refuse to post or otherwise make use of your user-generated content without notice or any liability to you or any third party in connection with our operation of user-generated content being used in an appropriate manner. Without limitation, we may do so to address content that comes to our attention that we believe is offensive, obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, violent, harassing, threatening, abusive, illegal, or otherwise objectionable or inappropriate, or to enforce the rights of third parties or these terms of any applicable additional terms. Such user-generated content submitted to you submitted by you or others need not be maintained on the service by us for any period of time, and you will not have the right, once submitted, to access, archive, maintain, or otherwise use such user-generated content on the service or elsewhere, except that California minors have certain rights to have certain content about them that they have themselves posted on the service, respectively removed from public display. See the privacy notice available at www.redlobster.com and www.redlobster.ca for more information. This is crazy, man. How far in this page are we? Not very far. I'm gonna go grab a water really quick and then we will continue. These ones are a lot more bouncy. Alrighty. Here we are in section C. I got water. Service use restrictions. You agree that you will not, aside from your purchase of goods or services offered for sale by Red Lobster, use the service for any political and commercial purpose, including for purposes of advertising, soliciting funds, collecting product prices, and selling products. Use contact information provided on the service for unauthorized purposes, including marketing. Engage in any activities through or in connection with the service that seek to attempt or do harm to any individuals or entities, or are unlawful, offensive, obscene, lewd, lascivious, discriminatory, filthy, violent, threatening, harassing, or abusive, or that violate any right of any third party or otherwise objectionable to Red Lobster. To the maximum extent permitted by applicable law, reverse engineer, decompile, disassemble, reverse assemble, or modify any service source or object code or any software or other products, services, or process of it accessible through any portion of the service, or alter transmission data. Engage in any activity that interferes with the user's access to the service or the proper operation of the service, or otherwise causes harm to the service, Red Lobster, or other users of the service. Interfere with or circumvent any security feature of the service, or any feature that restricts or enforces limitations on use of or access to the service, the content, or the user-generated content. Harvest or otherwise collect or store any information, including personally identifiable information about other users of the service, including email addresses, without the express consent of such users in compliance with applicable laws. Attempt to gain unauthorized access to the service, other computer systems, or networks connected to the service through password mining or any other means. Forge any TCP/IP packet header or any part of the header information in any email or news group posting or providing false or misleading representations in the sender information, subject line, locator, or content of any electronic message for the purpose of misleading others, or otherwise violate these terms or any applicable additional terms or applicable law. Content use restrictions. You agree that in using the service, you will not monitor, gather, copy, or distribute the content except as may be a result of standard search engine activity or use of a standard browser on the service by using any robot, rover, bot, spider, scraper, crawler, spyware, engine, device, software, extraction tool, or any other automatic device, utility, or manual process of any kind. You will not use the content or service in a manner that is competitive with or harmful to Red Lobster. Will keep intact all trademark, copyright, and other intellectual property knows contained in such content. Will not use such content in a manner that suggests an unauthorized association with any of our licensors, products, services, or brands. Will not make any modifications to such content other than to the extent expressly permitted by additional terms, if applicable. Will not copy, modify, reproduce, archive, sell, lease, rent, exchange, create derivative works from, published by hard copy or electronic means, publicly perform, display, disseminate, distribute, broadcast, retransmit, circulate, or transfer to any third party or on any third-party application, website, or otherwise use or exploit such content in any way for any purpose except as specifically permitted by these terms or any applicable additional terms, or with the prior written consent of an officer of Red Lobster, or, in the case of content from a licensor, the owner of the content, and will not insert any code or product to manipulate such content in any way that adversely affects any user experience. Good grief. I want to see like what the world record for reading this would be. I'm not going for a world record right here. I'm just like curious. We're not speedrunning this. We're just doing this for the bit. This is purely a bit. I'm gonna wait for the ad break to end. I need a break. Alright, and alright. As permitted by applicable law, Red Lobster may immediately suspend or terminate the availability of the service and content and the elements and features of them in whole or in part for any reason in Red Lobster's sole discretion and without advance notice or liability. Links by you to the service. We're granting you a limited, non-exclusive, revocable, non-assignable, personal, and non-transferable license to create hyperlinks to the service, so long as the links only incorporate text and do not use any trademarks. The links and the content on your website do not suggest any affiliation with Red Lobster or cause any other confusion, and the links and the content on your website do not portray Red Lobster or its products or services in a false, misleading, derogatory, or otherwise offensive manner, and do not contain content that is unlawful, offensive, obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, violent, threatening, or harassing, or abusive, or that violate any right of any third party or otherwise objectionable to Red Lobster. Red Lobster reserves the right to suspend or prohibit linking to the service for any reason in its sole discretion without advance notice or any liability of any kind to you or any third party. Alrighty. We're getting close to about 25% of the way through. Section E. Indemnity. You agree to, and you hereby defend, indemnify, and hold Red Lobster and its direct and indirect parents, subsidiaries, affiliates, and each of their respective employees, directors, members, managers, shareholders, agents, vendors, licensors, licensees, contractors, customers, successors, and assigns, collectively Red Lobster parties, harmless from and against any and all claims, damages, losses, costs, investigations, liabilities, judgments, fines, penalties, settlements, interest, and expenses, including attorney's fees, that directly or indirectly arise from or are related to any claim, suit, action, demand, or proceeding made or brought against any Red Lobster party, or on account of the investigation, defense, or settlement thereof, arising out of or in connection with, whether occurring heretofore or hereafter. Your user-generated content, your or anyone acting under your username and password, use of the service, and your activities in connection with the service, your breach or alleged breach of these terms or any applicable additional terms, your violation or alleged violation of any laws, rules, regulations, codes, statutes, ordinances, or orders of any governmental or quasi-governmental authorities in connection with your use of the services or your activities in connection with the service. Information or material transmitted through your device, even if not submitted by you, that infringes, violates, or misappropriates any copyright, trademark, trade secret, trade dress, patent, publicity, privacy, or any other right of person or entity. Any misrepresentation made by you and Red Lobster parties use the information that Usement does, including your user-generated content. All of the foregoing claims and losses, you will cooperate as fully required by Red Lobster parties in the defense of any claims and losses. Notwithstanding the foregoing, Red Lobster parties retain the exclusive right to settle, compromise, and pay any and all claims and losses. Red Lobster parties have the right to assume the exclusive defense and control of any claims and losses. You will not settle any claims and losses without any assistance the prior written consent of an officer of Red Lobster. This section E is not intended to limit any right you may have, if any under applicable law, subject to the remainder of these terms and any applicable additional terms, to seek to recover direct damages to you, including for personal injury arising out of product liability to the extent caused by us. Now, for our friends in California here, this section pertains to you. It doesn't really matter to the rest of the world. I don't understand why that's here, but I live on the other side of the country, so it makes sense. Residents of California are entitled to the following specific consumer rights information. You may contact the Complaint Assistance Unit of the Division of Consumer Services of the Department of Consumer Affairs by mail at 1625 North Market Boulevard, Suite N112, Sacramento, California 95834, or by telephone at 800-952-5210. Website is located at http://www.dca.ca.gov. California residents can obtain information on our privacy practices, including how we comply with the California Online Privacy Protection Act and the California Shine Light on Our Privacy Notice, posted at www.redlobster.com. Why does this taste salty? Any California residents under the age of 18 who have registered to use the service and who have posted content or information on the service can request such information be removed from the service by contacting us at the email address sent forth in the Section 2 Accounts Feature subsection G below. We'll get to that later. We're going to be here a while, aren't we? Alright, and this one is for our Canadian friends. Our Canadian services operate under the laws of Canada, which may require different responsibilities for us in the operation thereof and different rights for users thereof. For instance, Section 7B of our privacy notice outlines different privacy practices that apply to our Canadian service and restaurants located in Canada. Our Canadian service is intended for use by Canadian residents, and our other services are intended for use by U.S. residents. Our Canadian services are not intended to be offered in Quebec, and we have no restaurants there. Our apps are only intended for U.S. residents, and will only function as intended in connection with certain participating restaurants located in the U.S. Alrighty, and then we move on to Section 2. The accounts and features terms. Rewards program. We may offer you the option to enroll in a rewards program, which will be subject to additional terms. Rewards programs may, for instance, let you earn points toward the receipt of a free menu item. For more information, see our U.S. rewards terms that accompany these terms used and are posted at www.redlobster.com and on our U.S. rewards app. Accounts. This is the big one. In order to access or use some or potentially all of the features of the service, you may first be required to register an account. By registering at and in consideration of your use of the service, you agree to provide true, accurate, current, and complete information about yourself. Any services, practices governing any resulting collection, use, disclosure, and management of your personal information are disclosed in this privacy notice posted at www.redlobster.com and www.redlobster.ca. If you are under the age of 13, then you are not permitted to register as a user or otherwise use the service or submit personal information to us. Some features of the service may require use of a password. If you register for any feature that requires a password and or username, then you will select your password at the time of registration, or we may provide you a randomly generated additional password, and you agree that you will not use a username or email address that's already being used by someone else, may impersonate another person, belongs to another person, violates the intellectual property or other right of any person or entity, or is offensive. We may reject the use of any password, username, or email address for any other reason in our sole discretion. You'll provide true, accurate, current, and complete registration information about yourself in connection with the registration process, and as permitted to maintain and update it, including on your profile page, continuously and promptly to keep it accurate, current, and complete. You are solely responsible for all activities that occur under your account, password, and username, whether or not you authorize the activity. You are solely responsible for maintaining the confidentiality of your password and for restricting access to your device so that others may not access any password portion of the service using your name, username, or password. You immediately notify us of any unauthorized use of your account, password, username, or any other breach of security. Meaning your credit card got stolen, call Red Lobster. And you will not sell, transfer, or assign your account or any account rights. If you have any reason to believe or become aware of any loss, theft, or unauthorized use of your password, notify Red Lobster immediately as set forth in Section 2, Accounts and Features, subsection G below. You agree that you are solely responsible for any activity that occurs under your account. While we try to address actual and suspected account fraud, we undertake no responsibility for any loss that you may incur as a result of someone else using your account, either with or without your knowledge, and regardless of Red Lobster's knowledge or suspicion. We will not be liable for any loss or damage or any kind and under any legal theory to you or any third party arising from your inability or failure for any reason to comply with any of the foregoing obligations. If any information that you provide, or if we have reasonable grounds to suspect that any information that you provide is false, inaccurate, outdated, incomplete, or violates these terms, any applicable additional terms, or any applicable law, then we may suspend or terminate your account. We also reserve the more general and broad right to terminate your account or suspend or otherwise deny you access to it or its benefits, all on our sole discretion for any reason and without advance notice or liability. Okay. Hey, we made it to C. Let's go. We made it to C. It's a lot longer than I thought this would be. We might be here all night. Alrighty. Third-party content, sites, advertisements. Service may contain or may interact with or otherwise be associated with third-party platforms, services, plugins, applications, ads, tools, and or other content, and or links to third-party websites or other services that are not owned, controlled, or operated by Red Lobster, collectively third-party services, including services operated by advertisers, licensors, licensees, e-commerce partners, and certain other third parties who may have business relationships with Red Lobster. This may include the ability to register or sign in to our services using Facebook Connect or other third-party tools and to post content on third-party sites and services using their plugins made available on our services. We may also host our content, apps, and tools on third-party services. Red Lobster may have no control of the content, operations, policies, terms, or other elements of third-party services, and Red Lobster does not assume any obligation to review any third-party services. Red Lobster does not necessarily endorse, approve, or sponsor any third-party services or any third-party content, advertising, information, materials, products, services, or other items. Furthermore, Red Lobster is not responsible for the quality or delivery of the products or services offered, accessed, obtained by, or advertises as such third-party services. Some third-party services may impose fees for access to their resources through our service and or your account, and you are responsible for all such fees. Finally, to the extent permitted by law, we will, under no circumstances, be liable for any direct, indirect, incidental, or special loss or other damage, whether arising from negligence, breach of contract, defamation, infringement of copyright, or any other intellectual property rights caused by the exhibition, distribution, or exploitation of any information or content contained within these third-party services. Any activities you engage in connection with any of the same are subject to the privacy and other policies, terms, and conditions of use and or sale and rules issued by the operators of third-party services. Red Lobster disclaims all liability in connection therewith. Anyway, dealing with third parties, any interactions, correspondence, transactions, and other dealings that you have with any third parties found on or through the service, including on or via third-party services or advertisements, are solely between you and the third party, including issues related to the content of third-party advertisements, payments, deliveries of goods, warranties, including product warranties, privacy and data security, and the like. For more information about the implications of activating these third-party services and our use, storage, and disclosure of information related to you and your use of such services within our service, please see our privacy notice posted at www.redlobster.com and www.redlobster.ca. You hereby agree to indemnify Red Lobster parties against all claims, injury, and/or damages, including, without limitation, legal and attorney's fees that arise out of your use of any third-party service, including without limitation from any material that you post on any forum or social networking site in connection with us, and/or any other claim related to your use of social media. As permitted by applicable law, you hereby grant Red Lobster an irrevocable perpetual license to use, reproduce, edit, create, derivative works from, distribute, display, copy, transmit, or otherwise use in any way, commercially or otherwise, any material that you post any social networking site or other third-party service in connection with us or our service. Alrighty. Next section, wireless messaging and location-based features. The service may offer certain features and services that are available to you via your wireless device, i.e. cell phone. These features and services may include the ability to access services features and upload content to the service, receive messages from the service, and download applications to your wireless device, collectively wireless features. Standard messaging, data, and other fees may be charged by your carrier to participate in wireless features for which you are responsible. Fees and charges may appear on your wireless bill or be deducted from your prepaid balance. Your carrier may prohibit or restrict certain wireless features, and certain wireless features may be incompatible with your carrier or wireless device. Check with your carrier to find out what plans are available and how much they cost. Contact your carrier with questions regarding these issues. Terms of wireless features. You agree that as to the wireless features for which you are registered for, we may send communications via such features or apps to your wireless device regarding us or other parties. Further, we may collect information related to your use of the wireless features consistent with our privacy notice posted at www.redlobster.com and www.redlobster.ca. If you have registered via the service for wireless features, then you agree to notify Red Lobster of any changes to your wireless contact information, including phone number, and update your accounts of the service to reflect the changes. My voice is going to be shot after this, I can tell you that for free. Alright, we got a big guy here, messaging. You may be given opportunities to subscribe to various text marketing or other text messaging programs. By doing so, you consent to receive ongoing text alerts, including by auto-dialers, from us related to our various businesses and affiliates, which may include cover promotions with or about other parties, except that if the scope of your consent for a particular subscription is limited, that subscription will be so limited. Such consent is not required to purchase any product or service aside from the text subscription itself. For each subscription, text help for help and text stop to terminate, i.e. opt out, of that subscription. Subsequent or different subscriptions will be unaffected by an opt-out. Your consent to receive a text confirming any opt-out, as well as non-marketing, administrative, or transactional messages. For subscriptions to recurring text messages, you may receive up to the number of text messages per month specified in your consent or to which you will later consent. Alerts auto-renew unless otherwise specified when you consented. You understand that we will send mobile text messages using automated technology. If you subscribe to text messages, you represent that you are the age of the majority where you reside or have obtained parental consent. Standard message data and other fees may be charged by your carrier, and carriers may deduct charges from prepaid amounts or data allowances for which you are responsible. Contact the carrier for details. If we are charging a premium rate for text messages, that will be explained in applicable subscription consent. Not all phones and or carriers are supported. We are the sponsors of our text messages and may be contacted regarding them at 450 South Orange Avenue, Suite 800, Orlando, Florida 32801-3383. Specifically the legal department. You may cancel or modify our email marketing communications you receive from us by following the instructions contained with our promotional emails. This will not affect subscriptions, and if your opt-out is limited to certain types of emails, the opt-out will be so limited. Please know that we reserve the right to send you certain communications relating to your account or use of our service, such as administrative and service announcements, and its transactional account messages may be unaffected if you choose to opt out from receiving our marketing communications. Our email and text messaging activities in connection with our Canadian services are subject to applicable Canadian law that provides differing rights and responsibilities than apply under the U.S. law. See Section 7B of our privacy notice posted at www.redlobster.ca for additional information on our Canadian service and operations privacy practices. Struggling. Location-based features. If you have enabled GPS, geolocation, or other location-based features on the mobile apps or features on your device, or use our third-party Wi-Fi or Bluetooth services, you acknowledge that your device location may be tracked and may be shared with others consistent with the privacy notice posted at www.redlobster.com and www.redlobster.ca. Some mobile apps or features and your device may allow for you to disable some location-based features or manage preferences related to them. However, you can terminate device location tracking us by us through our app by uninstalling the app. Alright, next, devices and connectivity. Big guy. We do not warrant that the software provided by Red Lobster to utilize the service or any other software used in connection with the service will be compatible with other third-party software, nor do we warrant that operation of the service and the associated software will not damage or disrupt other software or hardware. You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining all devices and other equipment and software, and all internet service provider, mobile service, and other services needed for your access to and use of the service, and you will be responsible for all charges related to them. You further agree to look solely to the entity that manufactured and or sold you the device for any issues related to the device and its compatibility with the service and or the Red Lobster software. By using the service, you agree that Red Lobster may change, alter, or modify the settings or configurations on your device in order to allow for or optimize your use of the service, save content, access data, enable services, etc., as permitted by applicable law. For instance, our U.S. rewards that may access and read accounts, data, and or content on your device, and content to your device, and change settings of your device for reasons such as showing you the location of things or people near you, saving app images, sound files, and writing usage logs to the device, sending Facebook, Twitter, and other messages you initiate, sending and receiving data needed for app operations, and to provide you notice when you are not connected to a network. As permitted by applicable law, you consent to these activities by installing the app or otherwise using the service. Your device settings may enable you to disable, change, or limit some of these activities, and you can disable all of them associated with the app by uninstalling the app. You must be connected to the internet for the entire time you're using the service, the cost and provisions of which is your responsibility. The quality and display of the content may vary from device to device. It may be affected by a variety of factors such as your device, your location, the bandwidth available through and or speed of your internet connection. Red Lobster makes no representations, conditions, or warranties about the quality of your service experience on your device or the ability of any device access or display the content. In order to stream or download content, your equipment must meet certain system requirements, including but not limited to having high-speed internet access. Any issues related to the service and or the Red Lobster software, including any system requirements, are covered and limited by this agreement. Please refer to the disclaimer, representations, and warranties in Section 3F and limitations of liability in Section 3G, provisions set forth in these terms. We may offer you the ability to purchase gift cards and e-gift cards. The purchase of gift cards is governed by the gift card terms and conditions, and the purchase of the e-gift cards is governed by the e-gift card terms and conditions. Accompanying these terms and are available at www.redlobster.com or www.redlobster.ca, depending upon which service you access to buy them. In either case, you may be directed to a third-party merchant that sells and fulfills the gift cards. An e-gift card that has its own terms of use, terms of sale, and privacy policy, which you should review before completing a purchase. Gift cards and e-gift cards may have territorial purchase and user redemption restrictions that may differ between territories. Notices, questions, and customer service. You agree that we may give you notices of new, revised, or changed terms and other important matters by prominently posting notice on the homepage of the service or in another reasonable manner, and we may contact you by mail or email sent to the address provided by you. You acknowledge that any customer support we provide at Red Lobster is sole discretion and that we have no obligation to provide you with customer support of any kind. If you have any questions or comments about these terms use or the service, please contact us as follows. Customer questions or feedback. Customers should please see the FAQs and or submit the feedback form on our website. Employee questions. Red Lobster employees should please contact the Red Lobster Employee Relations Department and employee relations at redlobster.com or 800-762-5637, option 5. Opt out of marketing. The easiest way to opt out of marketing for Red Lobster is by following the instructions on the messages you receive from us. A text message may indicate, for example, that you may text STOP to 67766 to halt further marketing messages, while an email may include a tab to click unsubscribe. You may also opt out of marketing by contacting us through customer feedback, link noted above, or by writing or emailing us at the address provided below. California Consumer Privacy Act. California residents making privacy requests under the California Consumer Privacy Act should please follow the procedures indicated on our online privacy notice at https://www.redlobster.com/privacypolicy. Copyright and infringement notices. Copyright and infringement notices can be made by following the procedures under Section 3 infringement dispute terms below. All other communication not covered above can be sent to us at RL Investors Holdings LLC Attention Compliance and Ethics Office, 450 South Orange Avenue, Suite 800, Orlando, Florida, 32801-3383. Email complianceethics@redlobster.com if you're contacting a specific direct Canadian service or restaurants. Include Canadian service requests in the first line of your written communication, and include your name and contact information and explain your request or inquiry in detail. I'm running out of air over here. I'm running out of air and I'm running out of voice. Alright. Infringement and disputes terms. Procedure for alleging copyright infringement. In general, Red Lobster is under no obligation to post, host, display, store, or otherwise provide any material available in the service, including material you provide to us. And we reserve the right to take actions reasonably calculated in our discretion to maintain the service and its content in keeping with our brand and the purpose of the service. However, we have no obligation to monitor the service for infringing or offensive content, and our only commitment to respond to infringement complaints is as set forth in the Section 3 Infringement Disputes subsection A. DMCA notice, one of my favorite things. Not really. We respect the intellectual property rights of others and request that you do the same. I hate DMCA laws. You're hereby informed that in accordance with the U.S. Digital Millennium Copyright Act and other applicable law, Red Lobster has adopted and recently implemented a policy that provides for the termination in appropriate circumstances of subscribers and account holders of the service who are repeat copyright infringers. If you believe your copyright or the copyrighted person on whose behalf you are authorized to act has been infringed via the service, you may notify our agent, Horace Dodson, Executive Vice President and General Counsel, RL Investor Holdings LLC, 450 South Orange Avenue, Suite 800, Orlando, Florida, 32801-3383, complianceethics@redlobster.com. The effective, your notification must be in writing, be provided to our agent, and includes substantially the following: alleged or subject offenses, DMCA copyright infringement notice, identification of the copyrighted work that claimed to have been infringed, or if multiple copyrighted works at a single online site are covered by a single notification, a representative list of such works at that site. Identification of the material that is claimed to be infringing or to be the subject of infringing activity, and that is to be removed, or access to which is to be disabled, and information reasonably sufficient to permit the service provider to locate the material. Information reasonably sufficient to permit the service provider to contact the complaining party, such as an address, a telephone number, and if available, an electronic mail address at which the complaining party may be contacted. A statement that the complaining party has a good faith belief that the use of the material in the manner complained of is not authorized by the copyright owner, its agent, or the law. Statement under penalty of perjury from the complaining party that the information in the notification is accurate and that the complaining party is authorized to act on behalf of the owner of an exclusive right that is already infringed, and a physical or electronic signature of a person authorized to act on behalf of the owner of an exclusive right that is allegedly infringed. Red Lobster may elect to not respond to DMCA notices that do not substantially comply with all of the foregoing requirements, and Red Lobster may elect to remove allegedly infringing material that comes to its attention through notices that do not substantially comply with the DMCA. We also may send the information that you provide in your notice to the person who provided the allegedly infringing work. Please note that the DMCA provides that any person who is knowingly materially misrepresents that material or activity was removed or disabled by mistake or misidentification may be subject to liability. Are we halfway done yet? Almost, actually. Good, let's say 40%. Alright. Procedure for alleging infringement of other intellectual property. If you believe your intellectual property other than copyrights, or the intellectual property other than copyrights of a person on whose behalf you are authorized to act has been infringed, you may notify your agent at the above address. To be effective, your notification must be in writing, be provided to our agent, including substantially the following: a legend or subject line that says intellectual property infringement notice, identification of intellectual property, claim to have been infringed, or multiple properties of a single online site are covered by a single notification, a representative list of such properties at that site, identification of the material that is claimed to be infringing or to be the subject of infringing activity that is to be removed or access to which is to be disabled, and information reasonably sufficient to permit the service provider to locate the material. Information reasonably sufficient to permit the service provider to contact the complaining party, such as an address, telephone number, and if available, an electronic mail address at which the complaining party may be contacted. A statement that the complaining party has a good faith belief that the use of the intellectual property in the manner complained of is not authorized by the owner, its agent, or the law. A statement under penalty of perjury from the complaining party that the information in the notification is accurate and that the complaining party is authorized to act on behalf of the owner of an exclusive right that is already infringed, and a physical or electronic signature of a person authorized to act on behalf of the owner of an exclusive right that is allegedly infringed. We will act on such notices in our sole discretion. Any user of the service that fails to respond satisfactorily to Red Lobster with regard to any such notice is subject to suspension or termination. We may send the information that you provided in your notice to the person who provided the allegedly infringing material. Applicable law. Ugh. As permitted by applicable law, the laws of the state of Florida, without regard to conflict of law provisions, don't apply any other law, govern these terms and your use of the service, except to the extent that the arbitration is required in Section 3, infringement disputes, subsection D2 and 2, and except as to the enforcement of any arbitration decision or award, any action or proceeding relating to any dispute may only be instituted in state or federal court in Orange County, Florida. Accordingly, you and we consent to the exclusive personal jurisdiction and venue of such courts for such matters. Recognize that it's possible for you to obtain access to service from any jurisdiction in the world, but we have no practical ability to prevent such access. The operation of the service is subject to the laws of the state of Florida and of the United States, with the exception that Canadian service is subject to Canadian laws that are required to be applicable to it. If any material on the service or your use of the service is contrary to the laws of the place where you are when you access it, the service is not intended for you, and we ask you not to use the service. You're responsible for informing yourself of the laws of your jurisdiction and complying with them. It's basically telling you, hey, pay attention in civics class. Dispute resolution. Certain portions of Section 3D are deemed to be a written agreement to arbitrate pursuant of the Federal Arbitration Act. You and Red Lobster agree that we intend that the Section 3D satisfies the writing requirement of the Federal Arbitration Act, and Section 3D can only be amended by mutual agreement. First, try to resolve disputes. If any controversy, allegation, or claim arises out of or relates to the service, the content, your user-generated content, these terms, or any additional collectively dispute, then you and we agree to send a written notice to the other providing a reasonable description of the dispute along with a proposed resolution of it. Our notice to you will be sent to you based on the most recent contact information that you provide us. But if no such information exists or if such information is not current, then we have no obligation under this Section 3D. 1. You notice to us according to Arlen Investor Holdings LLC, 450 South Orange Avenue, Suite 800, Orlando, Florida 32801 3383. Attention Legal Department. For a period of 60 days from the date of the receipt of notice from the other party, Red Lobster and you will engage in a dialogue in order to attempt to resolve the dispute, though nothing will require either you or Red Lobster to resolve the dispute on terms with respect to which you and Red Lobster, in each of our sole discretion, are not comfortable. Content use restrictions. As permitted by applicable law, if a dispute arises and the parties have not been successful in resolving such dispute through negotiation, as set forth in Section 3D1, within 60 days of the receipt notice, the parties agree to attempt to resolve the dispute through mediation by submitting the dispute to a sole mediator selected by the parties, or at any time of the option of the party to mediation by the American Arbitration Association, AAA. There's multiple meanings of AAA. Any such mediation will be held in Orange County, Florida, or at your request telephonically. Each party shall bear its own expenses, except Red Lobster shall pay the expense of the mediator and the mediation fees of the AAA. All defenses based on passage of time shall be suspended pending the termination of the mediation, subject to Section 3D3. Nothing in this clause should be construed to preclude any party from seeking injunctive relief in order to protect its rights pending mediation. In the event mediation is unsuccessful, the parties agree to submit the matter for binding arbitration by AAA in accordance with the AAA then current consumer arbitration rules. If the dispute has claimed value of less than $10,000, the proceeding will be resolved by written submissions unless you request a telephonic or live hearing, or unless the arbitrator determines one is necessary. If the dispute has a claim value of not more than $250,000, then the arbitration will be heard and determined by a single neutral arbitrator who is a retired judge or a lawyer with not less than 15 years' experience as a practicing member of the bar and the substantive practice area related to the dispute who will administer the proceedings in accordance with AAA's supplementary procedures for consumer-related disputes. If the dispute is claimed value of more than $250,000, or Red Lobster elects in its sole discretion to bear the cost of arbitration in excess of those that would occur for a proceeding before a single neutral arbitrator, then the arbitration will be heard and determined by a 3-member panel, with one member to be selected by each party in the third, who will be the chair of the panel, selected by the 2 party-appointed members or by the AAA in accordance with the commercial arbitration rules. The arbitrator or arbitration panel, in this case, may be able to apply applicable law in the provisions of these terms, and any additional terms will be bound by these terms, and any additional terms will determine any dispute according to the applicable law and facts based upon the record. And no other basis will issue a reasoned award only in favor of the individual party seeking relief, and only to the extent to provide relief warranted by that party's individual claim. A lot of legal talk. Nature, limitations, and location of alternative dispute resolution. In arbitration, the arbitrator must honor the terms of these terms and any additional terms that can award the prevailing party damages and relief. However, with arbitration, there is no judge or jury. The arbitration proceedings and arbitration outcome are subject to certain confidentiality rules, and judicial review of the arbitration court arbitration outcome is limited. All parties to the arbitration will have the right, at their own expense, to be represented by an attorney or other advocate of their choosing. If an in-person arbitration hearing is required, then as permitted by applicable law, it will be conducted in the closest major metropolitan area for the U.S. determined as metropolitan statistical area, defined by the U.S. Census Bureau, where you are resident at the time of the dispute is submitted to arbitration. You and we will pay the arbitration administrative and arbitrator's fees and other costs in accordance with the applicable arbitration rules, but if applicable arbitration rules or laws require Red Lobster to pay a greater portion of all such fees and costs in order for the Section 3D to be enforceable, then Red Lobster will have the right to elect to pay the fees and costs and proceed to arbitration. Discovery will permit, pursuant to the applicable arbitration rules, the arbitrator's decision must consist of a written statement stating the disposition of each claim of the dispute, and must provide a statement of the essential findings and conclusions on which the decision and any award, if any, is based. Judgment on the arbitration decision and award, if any, may be entered in or by any court that has jurisdiction over the parties. This arbitration provision shall survive termination of these terms or the service. Subject to Section 3 infringements disputes. Subsection H. The foregoing provisions of this Section 3D will not apply to any legal action taken by either party to seek an injunction or any equitable relief in any connection with any loss, cost, or damage, or any potential loss, cost, or damage relating to your breach or alleged breach of these terms of use or additional terms and or either party's intellectual property rights, including such Red Lobster may claim that may be in dispute. We are over an hour into this. To the extent permitted by applicable law, disputes will be arbitrated only on an individual basis and will not be joined or consolidated with any other arbitrators or arbitrations or any other proceedings that involve any claim or controversy of any party. You and Red Lobster agree that each may bring claims against the other only in your or its individual capacity and not as a plaintiff or class member in any purported class or representative proceeding. There shall be no right or authority for any dispute to be arbitrated on a class action basis or on any basis involving disputes brought to a purported representative capacity on behalf of the general public or other persons or entities similarly situated. But if, for any reason, any court with competent jurisdiction holds that the restriction is unconscionable or unenforceable, an agreement in Section 3D2 to arbitrate will not apply, and the dispute must be brought exclusively in court pursuant to Section 3D5, notwithstanding with any other provision of this Section 3D4, and any and all issues relating to the scope, interpretation, and enforceability of this Section 3D4, including the class action waiver provisions contained herein, are to be decided only by a court of competent jurisdiction and not by the arbitrator. Federal and state courts in Orange County, Florida, and no jury trial. The following provisions apply to the extent permitted by applicable law, except to the extent that arbitration is required in Section 3D2, and except as the enforcement of any arbitration decision or award, any action or proceeding related to any dispute may only be instituted in state or federal court in Orlando, Orange County, Florida, according to you and Red Lobster consent to the exclusive personal jurisdiction and venue of such courts for such matter. Each party waives any right to a trial by jury. Notwithstanding the foregoing, either of us may bring qualifying claim and disputes to small claims court subject to Section 3D5. You are solely responsible for your interaction with others who use the service, whether online or offline. You are not responsible or liable for the conduct or content of any user. Reserve the right but have no obligation to monitor or become involved in disputes between you and other users. I'm salivating. And not in a good way. Subsection 3E applies if and only to the extent that the mandatory laws in your jurisdiction of residence do not permit arbitration of disputes in accordance with Section 3D, or the parties have not otherwise agreed to arbitration if required by applicable law. To the fullest extent permitted by applicable law, if any controversy, allegation, or claim arises out of or relates to the site, the content, your user-generated content, these terms or any additional terms, or to any of Red Lobster's actual or alleged intellectual property rights, collectively a Section 3E dispute, then you and we agree to send a written notice to the other providing a reasonable description of the Section 3E along with a proposed resolution of it. Our notice to you will be sent to you based on the most recent contact information that you provide us, but if no such information exists or such information is not current, then we have no obligation under this subsection C5. Your notice to us must be sent to RL Investor Holdings, LLC, 450 South Orange Avenue, Suite 800, Orlando, Florida, 328013383, Attention Legal Department. Subject to applicable law for a period of 60 days from the day of receipt of notice from the other party. Red Lobster and you will engage in a dialogue in order to attempt to resolve this Section 3E, though nothing will require either you or Red Lobster to resolve the Section 3E through their own terms, with respect to which you and Red Lobster, in each of our sole discretion, are not comfortable. The parties agree that the state or federal courts of Orlando, Florida shall have non-exclusive jurisdiction of any Section 3E unless otherwise required by applicable laws of your jurisdiction of residency. To the maximum extent permitted by mandatory laws in your jurisdiction of residence, these terms and any Section 3E arising out of or in connection with it or its subject matter or formation, including non-contractual disputes, will be governed by and construed in accordance with the laws of the state of Florida without regard to its conflict of laws provisions. Foregoing provisions of the Section 3E will not apply to any legal action taken by either party to seek an injunction or other equitable relief in connection with any loss, cost, or damage, or any potential loss, cost, or damage relating to your breach or alleged breach of these terms of use or additional terms and or either party's intellectual property rights, including such Red Lobster may claim that may be in dispute. And now we get in big bold letters. Disclaimer, representations, warranties, and conditions. As permitted by applicable law, your use of the service is your sole risk. At your sole risk. Service provided on as-is and as-available basis. You reserve the right to restrict or terminate your access to the service or any feature or part thereof at any time. Red Lobster expressly disclaims all warranties and conditions of any kind, whether express or implied, including but not limited to the implied warranties of merchantability and fitness for a particular purpose, and any warranties that materials on the service are not infringing, as well as warranties implied from a course of performance or course of dealing, that access to service will be uninterrupted or error-free, that the service will be secure, that the service or the server will make the service available will be virus-free, or the information on the service will be complete, accurate, or timely. If you download any materials from the service, you do so at your own discretion and risk, and you will be solely responsible for any damage to your computer system or loss of data that results from the download of any such materials, and no advice or information, whether oral or written, obtained by you from Red Lobster or from the service shall create any warranty or condition of any kind. Red Lobster does not make any warranties, conditions, or representations regarding the use of the materials in the service in terms of their completeness, correctness, accuracy, adequacy, usefulness, timeliness, reliability, or otherwise. The above disclaimer warranties does not apply to product warranties for manufacturers or for purposes of certainty in the products and services obtained at our brick-and-mortar restaurants, and is not limited to any otherwise legally available right of relief you may have under applicable laws, if any, to recover for personal injury arising out of product liability. My voice is slowly becoming a lot more redneck. I noticed the change. Limitations of liability. As permitted by applicable law, you acknowledge and agree that you assume full responsibility for use of the service. Your use of the service is at your sole risk. Under no circumstances will any Red Lobster parties be responsible or liable for any indirect, economic, exemplary, special, punitive, incidental, or consequential losses or damages of any kind, including loss of profits that are directly or indirectly related to the service or any other third-party services you access or link from the service, or from any actions we take or fail to take as a result of communications you send to us, or the delay or inability to use the service, or for any information, products, or services advertised in or obtained through the service, Red Lobster's removal or deletion of any materials submitted or posted on the service, or otherwise arising out of the use of the service, whether based on contract, tort, strict liability, or otherwise, even a Red Lobster or any of its suppliers have been advised of the possibility of damage. This disclaimer applies without limitation to any damages or injury arising from any failure or of performance, error, omission, interruption, deletion, defects, delayed operation or transmission, computer viruses, file corruption, communication line failure, network or system outage, your loss of profits or theft, destruction, unauthorized access to, alteration of, loss or use of any record or data, and any other tangible or intangible loss, and you specifically acknowledge and agree that neither Red Lobster nor its suppliers shall be liable for any defamatory, offensive, or illegal conduct of any user of the service. As permitted by applicable law, except as may be provided in any applicable additional terms, in no event will Red Lobster parties totally liability to you for all possible damages, losses, and causes of action in connection with your access to and use of the service, and your resident of these terms exceed an amount equal to the amount you have paid Red Lobster in connection with the transactions that underlie the claims provided. However, this provision will not apply if a court or a tribunal with applicable jurisdiction finds such to be unconscionable. For purposes of clarity, the prior sentence does not expand or limit any express written product warranty that is provided by Red Lobster or a manufacturer of a physical product. The foregoing limitations of liability will apply even if any of the foregoing events or circumstances were foreseeable, and even if Red Lobster parties were advised of or should have known the possibility of such losses or damages, regardless of whether you bring an action based in contract negligence, strict liability, or tort, including whether caused in whole or in part by negligence, acts of God, telecommunications failure, or destruction of the service. There's a lot here. The above limitations or exclusions do not apply to product warranties from manufacturers or, for purposes of certainty, the products and services obtained in brick-and-mortar restaurants, and does not limit any otherwise legally available right of relief you may have under applicable laws, if any, to recover for personal injury arising out of product liability. I should have seen how long this actually would have been. Waiver of injunctive or other equitable relief. As permitted by applicable law, if you claim that you have incurred any loss, damages, or injuries in connection with the service, then the losses, damages, and injuries will not be deemed irreparable or sufficient to entitle you to an injunction or to other equitable relief that may interfere with or prevent the development or exploitation of any website, application, content, user-generated content, products, or certain intellectual property owned, licensed, used, or controlled by Red Lobster, including your licensed, used, generated content, or a license to Red Lobster, provided, however, such shall not limit your ability to seek other equitable relief subject to these terms and any applicable additional terms. Hi, Freya. Apparently, Freya's wondering, why have I been talking about Red Lobster for the past hour and a half? Just about. Okay. Here we go. Updates to terms. As permitted by applicable law, these terms, or if applicable additional terms, in the form posted at the time of your use, so the applicable services to which the apply shall govern such use, including transactions entered during such use. As our service evolves, the terms and conditions under which we offer this service may respectively be modified, and we may cease offering the service under the terms or applicable to additional terms for which they were previously offered as permitted by applicable law. According to each time you sign in or otherwise use the service, you are entering a new agreement with us on the then applicable terms and conditions, and you agree that we may notify you of new terms by posting them on the service or in any other reasonable manner or notice which we elect, and that your use of the service after such notice constitutes your going forward agreement to the new terms for your new use and transactions. Therefore, you should review the posted terms and any applicable additional terms each time you use the service, at least prior to each transaction or submission, as permitted by applicable law. Any new terms or additional terms will be effective as to new use and transactions as of the time that we post them, or such later date may be specified in them or in other notice to you. However, the terms and any applicable additional terms that applied when you previously used the service will continue to apply to such prior use and any specific term to which we previously committed to apply those terms, if applicable. Example, changes and additions are prospective only, unless mutually agreed. In the event any notice to you of new, revised, or additional terms is determined to be by a tribunal to be insufficient, the prior agreement shall continue until sufficient notice to establish a new agreement occurs. You should frequently check the homepage and the email associated with your account for notices, both of which you agree are reasonable manners for providing you notice. You can reject any new, revised, or additional terms by discontinuing the use of the service and related services. Oh, yeah, that felt good. Alrighty. Accuracy, completeness, and timeliness in the information of the service. Red Lobster is not responsible for information made available. The service is not accurate, complete, or current. The material on the service is provided for general information only. It should not be relied upon or used as the sole basis for making decisions without consulting primary, more accurate, more complete, or more timely sources of information. Any reliance on the material on the service is at your own risk. The service may contain certain historical information. Historical information necessarily is not current and is provided for your reference only. We reserve the right to modify the contents of the service at any time. But we have no obligation to update any information on the service. It is your responsibility to monitor changes to the service. As to any provision in these terms or any additional terms that grant Red Lobster a right of consent or approval or permits Red Lobster to exercise a right in its sole discretion, Red Lobster may exercise that right in its sole and absolute discretion. No Red Lobster consent or approval may be deemed to have been granted by Red Lobster without being in writing and signed by an officer of Red Lobster. Operation and service availability of products and services and international issues. Red Lobster controls and operates the service from its U.S.-based offices in the USA, and Red Lobster makes no representation that the service is appropriate or available for use beyond the USA, except that the Canadian service will be operated under applicable Canadian laws required to be applied to it. If you use the service from other locations, you are doing so on your own initiative and are responsible for compliance with applicable local laws regarding your online conduct and acceptable content, if and to the extent local laws apply. The service may describe products and services that are available in the USA and Canada, or only parts thereof, and are not available worldwide. We reserve the right to limit the availability of the service and or the provision of any content, program, product, service, or other feature described or available on the service to any person, entity, geographic area, or jurisdiction at any time and in our sole discretion, and to limit the quantities of any content, program, product, service, or other feature that we provide. You agree that the United Nations Convention on Contracts for the International Sale of Goods does not apply to these terms or to any sale of goods carried out as a result of your use of the service. So we're getting the UN involved in Red Lobster? Okay. We're more than halfway there. Thank goodness. There's just so much. Software related to or made available by the service may be subject to export controls of the U.S. and or Canada. You are responsible for complying with all applicable trade regulations and laws, both foreign and domestic. Except as authorized by law, you agree and warrant not to export or re-export the software to any country or to any person, entity, or end user subject to the U.S. or Canada export controls or sanctions. If any provision of these terms or any additional terms, if for any reason deemed invalid, unlawful, void, or unenforceable by a court or arbitrator of competent jurisdiction, then that provision will be deemed severable from these terms or the additional terms, and the invalidity of the provision will not affect the validity or the enforceability of the remainder of these terms or the applicable additional terms, which remain in full force and effect to the extent permitted by applicable law. You agree to waive, and you hereby waive, any applicable statutory and common law that may permit a contract to be construed against the drafter. The word including is used in these terms or any applicable additional terms, the word will be deemed to mean including without limitation. The summaries of provisions and section headings are provided for convenience only and shall not limit the full terms. Count how many times I've said the word terms. Somebody, please, I beg you. Alrighty. Electronic communications and contracting. When you communicate with us electronically, such as via email and text message, you consent to receive communications from us electronically as permitted by applicable law. We will try to promptly respond to all inquiries, but you're not obligated to do so. As permitted by applicable law, you agree that all agreements, notices, disclosures, and other communications that we provide to you electronically satisfying any legal requirement that such communications be in writing, and that any time you electronically transact, agree, or consent by the service is intended to be an electronic signature which binds you as if you had signed on paper. As permitted by applicable law, you agree that your use of the service, other than to read the terms and privacy policy, constitutes agreement to the terms and any applicable additional terms then posted without further action by you. I feel like I'm gonna have a stroke. I don't know, like my voice is just gonna leave. One of the two. As permitted by applicable law, you agree that Red Lobster shall have the right without limitation and without any obligation to investigate any suspected breaches of service security or its information technology or other systems or networks, investigate any suspected breaches of these terms and any applicable additional terms or any potential harm to our users or third parties, use and or disclose any information obtained by Red Lobster in connection with the foregoing or to comply with law enforcement requests or legal requirements in accordance with our privacy notice posted at www.redlobster.com and www.redlobster.ca. Involvement, cooperating with law enforcement authorities in connection with any of the foregoing matters. Prosecute violators of these terms and any applicable additional terms, and discontinue the service in whole or in part, except as may be expressly set forth in any applicable additional terms. Suspend or terminate your access to it in whole or in part, including any user accounts or registrations at any time, without notice, for any reason, and without any obligation to you or any third party. Any suspension or termination will not affect your obligations to Red Lobster under these terms or any applicable additional terms. Upon suspension or termination of your access to the service or upon notice from Red Lobster, all rights granted to you under these terms or any additional terms will cease immediately, and you agree that you will immediately discontinue use of the service. Versions of these terms and the applicable additional terms, which by their nature should survive your suspension or termination, will survive, including the rights and licenses you grant to Red Lobster in these terms, as well as the indemnities, releases, disclaimers, and limitations on liability, and the provisions regarding jurisdiction, choice of law, no class action, and mandatory arbitration. I think I'm gonna make some tea after this. I just want to see how long the next section is. Red Lobster may assign its rights and obligations under these terms and any applicable additional terms in whole or in part to any party at any time without any notice. Ooh, that felt good. These terms and applicable additional terms may not be signed by you, and you may not delegate your duties under them without the prior written consent of an officer of Red Lobster. If you are accessing or using the service through an Apple device, then the additional terms and conditions provided below are applicable to you. Team applicable for Apple iOS. For our Apple users out there, this is for you. To the extent that you are accessing the service through an Apple device, you acknowledge that these terms are entered into between you and Red Lobster and that Apple Inc. is not a party to these terms other than a third-party beneficiary as contemplated below. The license granted you in Section 1, rights and responsibilities, subsection B, of these terms is subject to the permitted usage rules set forth in the App Store Terms of Service. See http://apple.com/legal/iTunes/us/terms.html and any third-party terms of agreement applicable to the service. You acknowledge that Red Lobster and not Apple is responsible for providing the service and content thereof. You acknowledge that Apple has no obligation whatsoever to furnish any maintenance or any support services to you with respect to the service. To the maximum extent not prohibited by applicable law, Apple will have no other warranty obligation whatsoever with respect to the service. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, and subject to the terms in these terms, that you acknowledge that solely as between Apple and Red Lobster, and not Apple, is responsible for addressing any claims you may have relating to the service or your possession and or use thereof, including but not limited to product liability claims, any claim the service fails to conform to any applicable legal or regulatory requirement, and claims arising under consumer protection or similar legislation. Further, you agree that if the service or your possession and use of the service infringes on third parties' intellectual property rights, you will not hold Apple responsible for investigation, defense, settlement, and discharge of any such intellectual property infringement claims. You acknowledge and agree that Apple and Apple subsidiaries are third-party beneficiaries of these terms, and that upon your acceptance of the terms and conditions of these terms, Apple will have the right and will be deemed to have accepted the right to enforce these terms against you as a third-party beneficiary thereof. When using this service, you agree to comply with sorry, I need to stretch. Any and all third-party teams that are applicable to any platform, website, technology, service that interacts with the service. Use of real-time route guidance on the service is at your sole risk. Location data may not be accurate. Also, Rocco says hello. Entire agreement, admissibility, no waiver. These terms and any applicable additional terms constitute the entire agreement, and whether between you and Red Lobster with respect to the subject matter thereof, and supersede all prior or contemporaneous communications, proposals, whether oral or written, between the parties with respect to such subject matter. A printed version of these terms of use shall be admissible in judicial or administrative proceedings based on or relating to the use of the service to the same extent subject to the same conditions as other business documents and records originally generated and maintained in print form, except as expressively set in forth in these terms or any applicable additional terms. No failure or delay by you or Red Lobster in exercising any of these rights, powers, or remedies under will operate as a waiver or that of any other right, power, or remedy, and no waiver or modification of any of these terms or any applicable additional terms will be effective unless in writing and signed by the party against whom the waiver or modification is sought to be enforced. And that is the Red Lobster terms and conditions. I did not say I would go through and talk about everything else. I would just say I would do the Red Lobster terms of use. That is it. That is the Red Lobster terms of use, updated effective September 1st, 2020.